Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first WE3 Clean Tech Innovation Live series. We welcome you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're logging in from today. We're very excited to be kicking off this first series today, how customer expectations and climate change are accelerating renewable energy growth. We wanted to kick off this series, as some of you may know, as part of our global WE3 event taking place in December 2021, because we really wanted to drive the conversations forward around sustainability, the clean energy transition, digital transformation, and we wanted to make sure that these topics are top of mind so that way the partnerships and actions can be taken to make sure we create and sustain that momentum towards a clean energy and water, bringing that together and bringing this whole ecosystem of key players in industry to talk about how we can create change. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to today's guests, Deepak Garg, founder and CEO of Smart Energy Water, and Johnny Johnston, COO of Algonquin Power and Utilities Corporation. Deepak, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. I think we are become more global in this digital world. So I really want to thank everybody for joining this meeting, this session for Clean Tech series with the W3, with me and Johnny Johnston. You know, I know Johnny for a long time, seen him from all his great experience in utilities from National Grid and all other, and then Algonquin Power right now being the Chief Executive Operating Officer there. Johnny, you know, one thing before we start the session, I just want to know that, you know, you always smiling, always is great energy. Doesn't matter, you know, I can feel it over digital, you know, when I meet with you, the same thing. What's the secret about that, you know?
I don't know if I've got a good secret. That's a good question, Deepak. I mean, I think, you know, life is short. We've all got to make the most of it and make the biggest impact we can. And so I think I've always been someone that's tried to look on the positive side of things and look for opportunities versus dwell too long on the problems.
Great. And with that, believe it or not, you know, because I know a lot about you, but I think this audience want to know more beyond, you know, the great work you're doing, great experience you have. Just share that, you know, that will be really great.
Well, to start, I'm an engineer by background, born in Scotland, spent a lot of my childhood years growing up in England, joined the utility industry straight from school. And through that, I've just had the most amazing career of being able to work in the electricity side of the industry, the gas side of the industry. Spent a number of years working in the US, and here I am today in slightly cold Toronto in Canada. I've been with Algonquin for a couple of years now as Chief Operating Officer. It's a really unique energy and water business. So we have utilities across 13 US states, a Canadian province, Bermuda and Chile, spread across gas, electric and water. In total customer count, we're just over sort of 1 million meters, so maybe 3-4 million customers attached to those. But we also have a big renewables business. In fact, that's where our company started. Over 30 years ago, we started as a small hydro generator up here in Ontario, and really have grown into the international business that we are today with over 2 gigawatts of renewable generation, as well as the utility side of the business. And so, you know, I guess as I moved into this industry, it was always, it was maybe a duller industry 25 or so years ago, around sort of in some ways just keeping the lights on, and some of this renewable stuff at the time was almost sort of token gestures. And so to have, through my career, been able to be sort of part of that transition, and boy, we've still got a long way to go. But it's become a way more interesting and arguably sexy career to be in than certainly where it started out. And so, yeah, it's been a great ride so far, and excited to see, you know, where the next couple of decades go as we go to a fully renewables world.
Sure. No, thank you. I think I can't, you know, express more, you know, emphasize on how much important industry this is. And I know I am biased, you know, I'm sorry I made this statement multiple time on a multiple occasion online. I love our utilities. I have a great respect for every executive, every person who worked for the utilities. When we were all at home getting this power, water, and gas, I'm sorry, there's a lot of hard work being put it to provide the sustainable, reliable infrastructure and a great customer service for that. Why I'm the biased person, and that's why my love for anybody who works and who attached to the utilities is there. So thank you for that, Johnny, for all the great work you and your team and the broader companies doing, and all the utilities across the globe. I think we're talking about the industry which touch everybody in the world. Billions of people cannot live without water, cannot innovate without power. And I think this came out. We were just talking, and I said, no, why not I'll tell you, this is like the beautiful thing people ask you and me, I think one way or other, why not some other industry? And I said, I'm sorry, this is the industry which everybody get connected to and everybody gets served to. And definitely to your point, there's a lot to do for this industry and all of us. And as an engineer, as my background as an engineer, this is what we can do, what we can contribute to society, So on that note, I love that too, when I was reading more and more deep about you and your team and the company is doing. First of all, congratulations, being the Global 100 Sustainable Corporation. This is like really great achievement. I think kudos to Liberty Utilities and everybody in the team. And I'm very surprised to see that we see a lot when people are talking about sustainability reports, but I saw that the team put it, the climate assessment report. That please tell us a little bit more about, the 2023 sustainability goal you have, and how you're seeing the things around the customer service and renewable energy around.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. I mean, it's funny in some ways. As I said, we sort of started off almost as a sustainable company before it was a thing to talk about. But I think anyone that has any engagement with investors these days, it's almost all they talk about. And so it's great to be part of an organization that really has had sustainability at its core. We talk about our purpose being sustaining energy and water for life, really sort of core of who we are and what we do. And so, like many others, launched a sustainability report 2 years ago. We updated it again last year. And as part of that, we really set out 9 goals so that it's more than just sort of talk, but there's some real sort of metrics that we can measure progress against over sort of that 5-year period through to 2023. And we'd sort of broken it down across the sort of the key elements of sustainability or ESG, so environmental and governance, as well as the sustainability side of things, social side, as well as just the environmental side, which I think is what folks often just think about when they talk about sustainability. So, on the environmental side, we have committed to getting 75% of our generation fleet renewable by 2023. We do have a number of fossil assets. Tied into that, reducing our own greenhouse gas emissions by 1 million metric tons a year. Made significant progress on that last year as we closed our last fully owned coal-fired power station out in Missouri and replacing that with 600 megawatts of wind. And then adding 2 gigawatts of renewable generation to our portfolio, all sort of bringing that together. And I think we've got 1,400 megawatts of that in construction as we speak. On the, I guess on the social side, tied into the customer, and maybe this whole conversation we had, customer satisfaction in there. So utilities have always been very much focused on safety and reliability. It's a key part of what we do, the commitment to society, and making sure that when you turn that switch, turn the tap, the gas, the electric, the water is there. But I think we as an industry have lagged in terms of how we show up for our customers, because it's almost been, if you didn't like our service, the only option you had was to move house to a different service territory. And that's a pretty high bar for a customer to take on. And so there hasn't been the focus there that maybe has been needed. And so as part of our sustainability report, have sort of set the ambition of wanting to be a top quartile customer service organization. I think as we looked at ourselves, we've still got a long way to go to meet that goal. It's probably the most stretching goal of all of our sort of sustainability commitments, and the team are really focused on what do we need to do to get there, not just in terms of the behaviors and how we show up, but actually the underlying technology and meeting the expectations of what customers are looking for going forwards as well, which is, boy, very different to when I was a kid.
No, I think I just picked up that one very important point you made, that is the sustainability and reliability is no more a conversation. It is in a core into the DNA of the society and the utilities, who are really looking more deeper into that. So thank you for sharing that. And this just a connected point on that is when you see around that renewables adoption, growth of the renewable, irrespective of when we're talking from the utility standpoint, residential standpoint, the people are putting solars, and more and more the battery solutions across. And on the other side, you've seen the EV adoptions coming, which is creating more demand, for the power company to be in a more reliable mode, because of the grid have to manage demand and supply. Just share that challenge or opportunity you see, and what the work you are trying to do, as an organization.
Where to start? I don't think we've got enough time to even fully unpack that one, Deepak. But I mean, it is super interesting times. I mean, I get really excited by EVs that you mentioned. I think if you look at it from a customer perspective, really it should be a no-brainer. Like through the whole life, it costs you less money. They're more reliable, and as the grid continues to green, they're just getting greener and greener and greener. And so you would think, everyone would have them. Yet you look. I think the latest stats are maybe a couple of percent of the population's got an EV today. Adoption has been pretty slow, and so you've got to sort of maybe strip that back. And what's driving that? I think for sure there's a knowledge concern or range anxiety, as everyone talks around. And I think people think of that one trip a year they do that's maybe a couple of 100 miles, and they forget that 99% of the trips they do is really within their neighborhood and their locality. I think there is an upfront cost. So, while the whole life cost is less, you've got to pay more upfront at the moment. And so I think governments for sure have been helping with some of the incentives there to take some of that away. And I think in some ways there's been a choice issue as well. Certainly if I go back to the UK and I see the options of vehicles there is substantively greater choices for consumers in terms of what's on the market than there is in North America right now. And so, for whatever reason that's been lagging, hopefully that we're going to see that change pretty soon and see a massive change in terms of people's choices to do good for their bank balance and for the environment. That's just one piece, I think, of this whole jigsaw. I think the broader sort of piece of how do you move away from these traditional large generating plants that are dispatched second by second to meet the forecast need of consumers. I think people don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes to sort of make that happen. And transitioning away from those facilities to renewables facilities that sort of by definition work when the sun shines or the wind blows, and then keeping the lights on. And then maybe the final challenge to add and make sure that the whole system's affordable. It is a real challenge. And I think every utility organization like ours, that's what we're working towards in terms of how do we make that a fair and reasonable and just transition that for sure moves towards renewables, but does so in a way that we don't have mass blackouts and we keep the reliability, but we do it in the most cost-effective and efficient way. And I think that's maybe that last piece is the real challenge to crack. I'm clearly biased as the utility provider, but sort of have that sort of sense of, as we built out the original electric, gas, and water systems, they were all built out in a way that the costs were shared across all of society. That meant really, however wealthy or maybe however financially challenged you were, you should be able to get access to these resources. And I think some of the ways that renewables is rolling out, I think particularly people putting solar and batteries into their own homes, is really at the moment driving those that have the money to be able to do things, and those that haven't got the resources are almost being left behind. And I think the big challenge for us working with policymakers and regulators is how do we ensure that this remains a fair transition? And I think the utilities are primarily placed to be making the right investments to make that transition, but in the most affordable way for customers. And I think that's going to be one of the real challenges as we sort of get, not for the first 10, 15, 50%. It's going to be as we get towards the 80, 90, 100% of renewables on the system. That's where this is going to sort of, the rubber's really going to hit the road. And I think we need really visionary policymakers that can help guide the frameworks that we see today to delivering that in a way that meets all those policy objectives.
No, I think I cannot more agree on the same point. Is the two kind of story and the two side of the story. One is the pressure on going more renewable, but being reliable, being sustainable, and on the top of that, meeting the customer need. It's a definitely most challenging, business to operate, and this is where I can't more and more repeat that. How much we need to love, because this conversation happened is multiple times during COVID. Is everybody was talking about the health industry, and I said yes, I had a great respect for health industry, but I'm sorry, I have a second grade respect and equal great respect for the utilities who were making the things possible when we were at home during this COVID. The utilities workers, the utility executives, they were thinking ahead and saying what they do to ensure that people still have that power, water, and gas at home to live, because otherwise we cannot operate. So in that connection, I really would like to know from you, what you seen the trends and change, positive, negative impact, customers' demand during this COVID-19. I think we are all living in this world of connected, non-connected, virtual, virtual everything. Just share that your thoughts, you have.
Yeah, what an interesting year it's now been, and I think there's no doubt that what the healthcare workers have done has just been phenomenal over the last year. But really behind the scenes, the work of all of the utilities in maintaining services and keeping everything running just shows the strength of the business continuity planning and work that's gone on behind the scenes for decades to make sure that we've got safe and reliable systems. And then the support particularly of our frontline teams that have been out there. While many of us have been able to work from home, they have not had that opportunity and have been out there ensuring that we maintain that service for our customers, and they've done a fantastic job. But yeah, as you think about, as I think about the last year and maybe my own experiences, I think lots of things have happened. My mum was widowed maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She's in her late 70s, and before lockdown, the thought of her ordering her groceries online and getting delivered to our home it would have just never happened. And here we are today. As I speak to her back in the UK, she tells me about how she's got stuff ordered and is complaining about the things they've substituted that she didn't want. But boy, the digital revolution that has happened over the last year is just unbelievable. And I think even the fact that we're having this conversation on this platform now, like a year ago, certainly 18 months ago, this would have never been something that would have done. And maybe to your point, we've now got the opportunity for this to be watched anywhere in the world without us all going to a conference and spending a day traveling there, a day getting back. The opportunities in terms of sort of communication and collaboration, and I think we've all moved forwards a long way through that. But I think as folks have spent a lot of time at home, I think people probably also have spent a lot of time thinking about what's important. And everyone will have a different perspective on what that is. But I think we're going to see an increased focus on, the environment and the world that we live in, and maintaining that is really important. I think we'll see an increased focus there. At least I know from my perspective, I've never noticed the seasons more than I have in the last year. Is there's been so many few little things to do. You find yourself walking in parks and just sort of really noticing how that's changed. And then I think maybe the final piece for me in terms of the impact of the last year that I don't think we've got full visibility of yet is going to be the economic impact. As I walk around the streets of Toronto, the number of restaurants that are now boarded up and aren't going to be reopening post-pandemic is probably just the tip of the iceberg. And so, that focus on cost that we mentioned earlier, I think is going to be even greater than ever in terms of how we find our way through, the next few years. So I think lots has changed. I think there's lots of opportunities and lots of challenges. But maybe back to my starting off smiling at the beginning, I remain confident that we're going to come out of this stronger and better because of the experiences of the last year.
No, I think that's truly a point, because when we were talking the other day, I think that, and I know that you use that affordability, of these most important commodity, and most important service. We can live without iPhones of the worlds and Google of the worlds and Amazon of the worlds, but we cannot live without water, and we cannot live without power and the gas at home. In that context, as you said that, we're looking this pandemic, COVID-19, definitely it's a shake it up all of us globally. And I can tell you, I think when we see some industries are really struggling, and you share that example of your mom, definitely retail industry, who were digitally ready to get to the last mile done and connect to the customer. We've seen, I think we all seen that report came out, the 100 billion quarter for the Amazon, everybody going crazy on that. I think we've seen the same thing, the digital, and I love that point when you said that the digital transformation is no more conversation itself. It's something, you can do here, you can do there. And we've seen the same thing, like everybody's talking about every industry digital transformation more faster than people are talking about what people were thinking about doing something 5 years, 10 years down the road. They want to do it now. And I think that's a big push to the industries and the people who are supporting the industry to get to the next level. So in that context, if I want to connect the dots, I think there's a lot of conversation around the world beyond COVID, 19 was all about, we've seen the big trends, which is not a good trend, is the climate. We've seen the flood, we've seen the fires, we've seen a lot of heat, we've seen a lot of cold, And then when we're looking across the globe, this conversation is now again having a center conversation with some of the political scenario change across the globe. Everybody talking, the governments are talking, the private companies are talking, definitely utilities are talking for sure, because they are the most badly impacted. If the fire is there, then they get impacted. The flood is there, they get impacted. If they get a heat, they get impacted. If it's cold, they get impacted. So I feel that I think a lot of people don't understand all these factors, which maybe impact other industry 20%, 60%, it impact 100% to the utilities. And still, utilities work hard to make sure they're reliable, sustainable for that. You just share with that, what does goal look like? What do you see as a change, and how you readjusting as a company and executive, for that?
Yeah, it's a good question, Deepak. I think the point you raise around the storms, the fires, the floods, have made something that the science has said for a long time a lot more tangible and real. And I think I think that is hugely helpful for the sort of transformational change we're talking about here. I think it's always tough when you get into sort of the political world, but like we're seeing global alignment. I think the Paris Agreement was a massive step forwards, maybe not ambitious enough, but actually getting into this has to be a collective step forwards. And I was very concerned when the US pulled out of the Paris Accord. Really pleased to see them move back into that, because I think it'll become a catalyst for global action. And hopefully an opportunity for the US to really be leading the way in terms of what can be done. Because I think the entrepreneurial spirit of the US, it's a country that when it puts its mind to something can do stuff like almost nowhere else. And so, I think I'm super excited there. I think the other massive change that's going to help to facilitate this, and maybe it ties back into the affordability piece. Like when I joined this industry and we talked about renewables, they were this token thing that was just outrageously expensive. And certainly solar, like maybe $400 a megawatt hour, maybe even more when I first, and you were just like, this will never catch on.
Sure.
And here we are all these years later. I would have never have believed that I could sit here on this call and say, like, if you want to build some new generation, the cheapest extra megawatt you're going to find today is going to be a wind or a solar one. And so that doesn't fully take into account the reliability side, but certainly in terms of just generating a new megawatt hour, it's the cheapest way to generate power going forwards, which I think is going to drive a huge amount of change in terms of delivering the new assets that are going to help us to decarbonize. I think the second point, or maybe the core point of your question was, but the climate is changing, and what are you doing as a business to be ready for that and manage? I think it's an area that all companies are spending a lot of time on, and certainly for us, spent a fair bit of time last year working through, what do we see as some potential future climate scenarios? What do we think those impacts are going to be on our assets? And what are the investments that we need to be making today for events that might happen 5, 10, 15 years from now, but in a way that we can be able to keep our critical services flowing? Because if we can't do that, there's going to be huge humanitarian issues. And so I think as an industry, we're spending a lot of time thinking about actually what do these increased storm events mean? What do these changing in temperatures mean? And how do we make sure that we're building our systems in places that won't get flooded, or we have the right defenses in place, etc. So I think it's going to be an area of increasing focus for people that have got critical infrastructure like ours to make sure we're ahead of the game. And in some ways, you have to use scenarios. I don't think there's a clear forecast of exactly how this is going to play out. And so you've got to look at what's a range of potential outcomes and how do you balance what they may be, and therefore the right investments to make.
And to add to what you just said, and I think this conversation we had the multiple times when we had a one-on-one is, with that, all the great strategy for today and tomorrow, which governments, utilities, and everybody's doing, is the people participation is the most important. Those billions of people who get impacted. And I love that when we always talk about that customer, which is we are serving collectively, it's truly is have to be proactively informed, proactively contribute towards that, because it's not, because sometimes we always look upon the governments, utilities to do everything. I think it's become now, it's today and tomorrow is us. How we connect the dots between the people and make the customers also be the part of those. And I love that, that conversation too. So this is, I know that Jason and the team is already saying, guys, cut off, we will be keep talking, and we will be keep talking for 24 hours if you start having this free fall of the conversation. But one of my favorite topic, and I know that is your favorite topic too, that all these things are happening across the globe. We talk about industry and all the technology. It's truly enabling the things and making a lot of things happen. And we've seen the value of technology, and that's why we are able to even do this, conversation openly. So when you see the customer experience, you talk about the people of the trends, talking about AI, talking about machine learning, all connected devices across the transmission side, distribution side, all the good way, we're talking about the customer. What do you see that, how that's according to you is playing in a customer operation workforce side, what you are engaging and what you're thinking about that, your point of view on that?
At least with my sort of utilities hat on, we've got a lot of work to do. I think we've been shown up by the Amazons and the Facebooks that tell you of things you need before you even realize you needed them. But you can sort of see the value and the impact. And certainly within our business, we're spending a lot of money now in terms of putting the infrastructure in place to give us the right data, and then starting to build the muscles around, machine learning, AI, to go, how can we now leverage that data to give better outcomes for our customers? And I sit here definitely as not an expert on this. I know we've got a lot of work to do, and I think there's been some horror stories of people that spent millions on this and delivered very little value. And so we're certainly very much focused on the sort of crawl, walk, run approach of let's start small, get some clear use cases, and really focus on the customer in terms of what value we can provide to them, and we'll see where it goes from there.
No, I cannot agree more. More than that, you rightly said, it's not only the technology play, it's about the person and the team who is supporting that, how much depth they have about the business. Because I think sometimes we take the approach of, the technology can put every solution a business is looking. And I think with the lack of what we've seen is around, I'm being very open around that, is what we've seen is like a lot of people trying to do the surface solutions and don't go vertically deep in that. And I think we are all very fortunate, we have a great technology company ecosystems for good reasons, and the utilities who are taking the next step to go more customer focused, more their own operation focus, and leveraging this technology. But I really thank you, Johnny, for this great time we spend on together, and I think, I don't know, maybe we are entertaining some questions. Jason, I'm just looking, he's a boss right now for both of us, we are looking for that, I'd love to, me and Johnny can answer if you allow that.
Let's see. Sure. I'm trying to see if there's any questions in there for the audience. Let me see here. 1 second, Deepak. No, I think we're, I think there one question, and maybe talk a little bit, and we do have one time for one, is maybe that next generation. I've heard both of you talk about that quite a bit, and just chime in on the importance of really reaching and engaging that generation early on. They don't have buying power, maybe not now, but it's coming, and so and they're very outspoken, as we know, about what they want and when they want it. So maybe let's do on Johnny, maybe give a quick follow up on that, and Deepak, and then we can conclude.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next generation are key in some ways. We're going to be handing over the keys of this world to them to take it forwards, moving forwards, and so they're key to be engaged and listened to and educated. I know certainly as we think about it, even EVs, one of our focus areas has been putting electric buses into schools. Why is that? Because it's engaging folks young to see the benefits, talk to their parents, and start to move things forward. So, I mean, I think we're tight on time, but I think 100% agree with the point from whoever raised it. Like, getting engaged and listening to the youth is going to be a key part of a successful, sustainable strategy that meets not only the needs of today, but the next generation that are coming along.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just want to extend, I think I love this discussion of empowering people, educating people, and engaging people. It's just a very important thing to Johnny's point, I think as an industry, as a part of the industry, very, very important for all of us, engaging everybody, because definitely the young team and the young people coming in, they will be driving all the demand for the future. But I feel that, it's a platform with a multi-channel, multi-engagement approach for everybody, and engaging at every level will be the key. As we talk about sustainability, we talk about climate, we talk about reliability. It's not only the industry have to take care of that, it's the people who consume that services have to be part of that. And they should be also very educated about and smart about what they can do to contribute towards that. So I'm 100% aligned to what Johnny said.
All right, well, that wraps it up. Johnny, thank you so much. Deepak, thank you so much. And thank you everyone out there for joining us. In just a few small housekeeping items, we will be back next week with Samud CIO, Steve Clements. So please tune in to join us. And the good thing, as we mentioned, is you don't have to re-register. Now you have the platform login. You'll be able to access these sessions, come back and watch this session, and join next week. So from all of us here at Zpryme, and on behalf of Johnny and Deepak as well, we want to say thank you, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, man.
Jason. Thank you, Johnny.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody from Zpryme. Take care, guys.